The 6 to 7 Figure Show, episode 108, the best of the 6 to 7 Figure Show series.
Broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun outside Phoenix, Arizona, this is the 6 to 7 Figure Show. Tired of working so hard and having no time? Take your six-figure practice and turn it to a thriving seven-figure enterprise. And now, your host, author, speaker, mentor, and strategist, Frank Bria.
Welcome to the 6 to 7 Figure Show. I'm your host, Frank Bria. Welcome to this special best of series. Before we get to today's hand-selected episode, a quick message from our sponsor brought to you by High Ticket Program. Any service business owner looking to reach seven figures suffers from the same problems. When you start the journey, you're on your own, managing tasks and maybe a few team members. But as a seven-figure business, now you need a team that's executing for you day in and day out. Somewhere along the way, you have to hire, train, and manage these team members, even if you've never done this stuff before yourself. And if you don't manage scale and growth at the same time, you'll end up crashing under the weight of new customers or building an expensive operation you can't afford to keep running. If you want to avoid these problems and get past seven figures, then let's talk. Let me map out a plan for you of pain-free growth. I'd like to speak with you personally and tailor the plan for you. So text HTP to 602-698-7575. Now, that is my direct line. Those messages come to me directly. So if you're serious about finally getting past the seven-figure mark in your business, text HTP to 602-698-7575. Today, I am really thrilled to be joined by my friend Alex Schlinsky, who is a renowned business coach, speaker, and entrepreneur. He's the founder and CEO of Prospecting on Demand, a company that specializes in helping marketing agency owners implement the systems and strategies necessary to scale their company and become successful CEOs. He is a decorated speaker and author, making appearances at college universities and being featured in several publications that you've heard of, such as Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes, and so forth. And the rest, I think, needs no other introduction. But Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey, Frank, appreciate you having me. So glad to be here. Everyone that's listening and watching, appreciate you too. Thanks for giving us your time.
Yeah, absolutely. So prospecting on demand. So I know it. So let's dig in because I think from like just prospecting on demand, a lot of people would think, okay, so it's literally just sales systems. But as I discussed, like you go into a lot more depth with folks. So why don't you give people a little bit more of a background, like who exactly do you work with and what are the kinds of things what are kind of the outcomes that you create for them?
So you actually nailed it, right? It used to solely be marketing agency owners, and I worked with them probably for 2 to 4 years or so because that was what I knew really well because I grew my own marketing company, and I always recommend people to utilize their past experience and understanding of the avatar just because it's so natural. Like currently I'm working with someone who is a former accountant for 10 years and now he's working with accountants in a coaching program because it just makes sense. It's just easier. But I've actually converted Prospecting on Demand now to open up the doors a little bit more to what my next logical avatar is, which is me again, coaches and consultants, right? So now I really focus on agency owners, coaches, and consultants because the systems are pretty much similar. The only major difference between the two, of course, would be agency owners is a fulfillment for some sort of marketing or ads or website service. And a coaching program is more of a mentorship guided coaching program where it's like a training or something. So similar, but you know, not exactly the same, but very similar. So
Sure.
Essentially what we do is we focus on the 4 core tenets of the businesses, and every business has the same 4, which is prospecting, sales, and fulfillment. Now, some call prospecting marketing. My business is called Prospecting on Demand, so thus I call it prospecting. Sometimes people think we're like a gold prospecting group, like actually like prospecting. I'm like, no, we're prospecting for gold in a different type of way, online gold, money gold, opportunities. So it's a slightly different model. Sales, which is converting clients from leads into actual opportunities and people that are paying you. And then fulfillment and or delivery, which is servicing them what you actually sold. Because if you don't do that, then you suck at your job. And also you're not actually providing the service that you sold, which is bad. That creates kind of that, really negative connotation around what sales is. Like, Glenn Ross and Wolf on Wall Street, like, oh, just sell them whatever to make money. Like, That's a movie. That's not how it's supposed to be. That's not what it means to be. But those three were the core tenets for a long time until I identified there's a fourth core tenet that I had not given enough credence to. And that's the gasoline that pushes everything else. And that's productivity, which is essentially discipline, accountability, mentorship, guidance, and clarity. How do I ensure that I know what I'm prioritizing, productizing, and ensuring that I'm using my time effectively? Because Frank, I ask this question a lot and I love it. It's one of my favorite things. It's like, what would you do with an extra hour in your day? And people will be like, I want to spend more time with my kids. I want to catch up on Game of Thrones. I want to watch Chernobyl on HBO. I want to do this. I want to go to the park. It's like, okay, cool. Guess what? There's a way to get an extra hour. Ready? Prioritize better, because I promise you, you are wasting at least an hour in your day, if not more, right? That's one of the most valuable aspects. So we really focus on those four core tenets for marketers, agency owners, coaches, and consultants.
Nice. Absolutely. That's really well rounded out. And I'm grateful that I don't have to grow my beard out to like some 1800s gold rush guy to do the prospecting thing. No, but you know, one of the things I love about the way that you describe the prospecting and sales process as part of the overall whole is that you don't shy away, you know, because a lot of people hear the word prospecting and have this, some people have this like this recoil reaction that there's something wrong or bad about sales. Like you and I have both seen so much messaging in the marketplace that sales is bad and that and salesy is some bad thing. And I keep thinking like, how are you expecting to get people to buy your stuff if you refuse to sell? But there's a lot of energy and a lot of content written out in the world trying to help this exact audience, agency owners, coaches, and consultants, to actually operate their business without selling or without the concept or feel of selling. Like it seems, it seems crazy. Well, where do you think that comes from?
Fear. And just like the emotional basis of fear, the crocodile brain fear, the immediate recoil fear. Like if you might be afraid of snakes, like if you see a snake, immediate recoil. Like that for me is like spiders. It used to be butterflies, story for a different day. I'm serious. I used to be scared. But like you just have that immediate recoil. Similar example would be kind of the physiological response to seeing a cop in your back dash where your stomach drops. No one watching this right now can actually recreate that feeling consciously. It's impossible. It's a physiological reaction that happens. And I think that's what it is. It's just like this immediate physiological response, crocodile brain. Sales equals bad. Sales equals bad person. Sales equals not helping. Sales equals persuasion in a bad way. Sales equals people taking my money. Where everything else in my mind is sales equals creating opportunities. Sales equals solving problems. Sales equals changing lives. Sales equals creating impact. Sales equals making money to create more impact and provide for my family. I think the problem with sales comes down to fear, lack of really definition of what sales means to them. And then finally, I think the connotation of what being selfish is. I think there's a connotation that being selfish is a horrible thing. Always being selfish is a horrible thing. However, being selfish is a requirement to being alive, right? Like if you decide to only be selfless and not eat and only give food to other people, you will die from starvation. If you identify that you can only continue to give and give and give and not take anything or receive anything, you will die. That's just part of it. So you must be selfish in some way and selfless in other ways. And I think excellent salespeople are selfless in giving on the call and selfish in understanding that they believe the value of their service. So when people come to me and talk about being salesy, Frank, it's because they're fearful of being looked at as too selfish or too arrogant. Whereas when I look at it as I'm not being selfish, I'm being confident that if I don't aggressively pursue this opportunity for you, lead that I believe will fit well into my program, my product, service, or solution, I'm doing a disservice to you. I'm doing a disservice to me. I'm doing a disservice to my alignment of what my goals are, which is making the biggest impact possible to the most amount of people, while also making money to provide for my family and the local community that I want, and to provide to charities and do things I want to do. That doesn't mean I'm selfish. That doesn't mean I'm selfless. It just means I'm a good entrepreneur. And ideally and hopefully what that also means is a person of integrity and just a good person in general, which is my ultimate goal as a human being. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Selfishness and fear and a lack of understanding or defining what that really is for them.
Yeah. I think you nailed it, man. Like, I think the psychological fear or that recoil reaction, that's exactly what it is. So the thing that fascinates me about that dynamic is that the same people who have a really negative reaction or experience with sales, and there's a lot of places this could come from, right? I mean, it could come from negative. I mean, you pointed out a couple of like movies and things like that where the public image of sales is really tarnished or made fun of, but sometimes it comes from actual experiences. People have been ripped off, people have been scammed or whatever, like that happens sometimes to people. But it's fascinating that the same people who feel that and can't get past that feeling want to then in turn around and stand in a place of encouraging someone else to take a step and give them money to do it without getting past that internal piece. And to me, it feels like a constant fight internally for those folks. And I don't know about you, but I see that all the time. And I see people struggle to make sales or to be able to sell because they internally can't get past that piece, because they feel negatively about selling, but yet they in turn try to do that themselves. It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's really powerful. It's cognitive dissonance, right? Like you feel one way but act in another, and this is a human, psychological process that's common across, worlds, creeds, religions, races. Everyone feels this way about certain things. Sales for entrepreneurs is one of like the major ones where, like you say, you want to sell your service, but internally you feel negative towards sales, and thus it kind of bleeds into your sales process, or you try to avoid it by all means necessary, like creating VSLs or sales videos instead of getting on a call, which limits your ability. Like it's pretty much impossible in this day and age I wouldn't say anything's impossible, but it's highly unlikely to sell anything past $2,000, $3,000 without being on a call. Like it's just really hard. Think about it yourself. Like, would you put money down for something, watching just a video? It's really, really tough. That's a really hard thing to do. So I think a lot of people, they shy away because they don't allow themselves to identify or clarify what's actually happening. And this is much bigger than just sales and much bigger than just fear. It's the idea of human beings in general, not feeling comfortable to go to the root cause. They'd rather just kind of go surface level. They'd go surface level. So I love this mindset that I've kind of put together for myself, because we've had a lot of these very frank conversations, which is like, what do I know about myself that I allow to just pigeonhole a singular verb or singular word or noun or adjective? And a good one would be, for example, fear. Like, okay, I'm afraid. I'll use the butterfly story. So I used to be terrified of butterflies. I know this sounds crazy, but just hear me out. When I was a kid, things that flew and made that noise of zzz sound would just freak me out, specifically because I got stung by a bee when I was really young. And then I just put all of them into the bee category, which everyone's doing with what we're talking about. You get stung by one salesperson, now you put all the salespeople into that one category. All the zzz is a bee, right? It's not true though. There's lots of other amazing animals like dragonflies. They're not going to do anything. Butterflies, beautiful. They're not going to do anything. Moths, they're not going to do anything. I'm terrified, literally terrified. My brothers, I'm the youngest of three, brought me to Butterfly World in South Florida because they're evil. And everyone's there like, oh my God, beautiful butterflies. I'm there 10 years old, killing butterflies. Like, get out of my face. I'm freaking out, losing my mind, right? And there's other kids there that are loving it and enjoying it. And they bring me outside. Like I literally had to be escorted out. And I remember I had this fear, this carnal, emotional, true fear till maybe 18, which is outrageous, right? Crazy. And the truth was, because I never wanted to go deeper, it was just easier to surrender to fear. Like, I'm fear. That's cool. Like, whatever. I can just avoid that because there's lots of other things in this world that I don't have to think about. And then, it started to become like a nuisance, like a joke. Like, how can you actually truly be fearful of a butterfly? Like, how is that even possible, right? When I started thinking about it and learning more about psychology and the way fear actually happens in your amygdala and your brain and what is going on, I just learned that I'm not going to allow a singular word to have a definition defined by someone else or defined by me in one word. So I'd go deeper. Why am I fearful? Because of getting stung by a bee, because I went to Butterfly World, because, that's it. I don't have anything else.
Right.
I've got nothing else. Once you start defining, going down the list, you start to identify either that your house of straws, right, or house of cards is just tumbles away, or you recognize that this massive obstacle that you created in your mind, it's really just like a small little hill. It's nothing. You just walk right over it. Right. So I think that's what a lot of people fail to do, is just go deeper and identify the root cause of where fear is, or problems, or concerns they have, because they'd rather simply just stay in that mindset, stay stuck in that format of, nope, I'm uncomfortable with this. Nope, this doesn't work for me. Nope, I don't like sales. And I think that's where a lot of people lose out on being the best version of themselves, and why, like people resonate with Tony Robbins or Gary Vaynerchuk or landmark events. And you don't have to agree with all the stuff they do, but the reason why people resonate with that is because they're trying to break down barriers of, this emotional feeling that you have is probably not really founded or grounded in much of anything other than just the consistent time you saying it over and over and over. Like when a waiter sells you a drink that you weren't planning on buying, that's being sold. Like when you go to a doctor because you saw a billboard, that's being sold. Like being sold is everything in your life. Being sold your time, watching Netflix instead of going to YouTube, instead of going outside, like you're always being sold. So I think it's easier just to like focus on surface level garbage. But if you take a minute to just try to identify what the deep rooted issue is, not just in sales, but in everything in your life, you'll find more avenues to grow, not necessarily to succeed, but to grow.
Yeah. And I mean, what's sad is that there's a lot of people peddling to that exact fear, right? I mean,
100%.
I mean, we all are kind of peddling to fear, I guess, in one way or the other, right? So I guess it's just your perspective, but you've just described what I like to describe as people who I call people who are hiding behind their computer. They're basically trying to run their business hiding behind their computer, rather than actually getting out and talking to people. And I just don't see how that's going to be successful. But there's a lot of people who sell to people who are afraid and want to hide behind their computer, and they tell them that that's essentially how it's going to work. So, but as I like to say, it ain't a superpower if it can't be used for evil. So I guess that's the way it works. I want to pivot real quickly though. So let's talk a little bit about how you work with clients and get them through these 4 quadrants. So what does that program look like? What's it called? How do you work with, what are the logistics of that?
So the program that we do is called Prospecting on Demand Elite. It's a 90-day mentorship program. And in the format, we have specific milestones that we're trying to hit until we hit a graduation point where we feel comfortable to talk about the next stages of your business. And what we're focused on is our Ascension Promise, where we're taking them, right? And our Ascension Promise is that we are going to remove you as a freelancer, being stuck in freelance mode, doing everything, meaning wearing every hat, the prospecting hat, the sales hat, the fulfillment hat, the accounting hat, productivity hat, every hat, all the hats, right? Remove those, focus on what your core skill is, and hire and delegate the other skills, right? That's our main focus, is helping you move yourself from a freelancer and become a CEO or COO or whatever real role you want to be. People kind of get pigeonholed into like what the standard roles are. Who cares what the standard is? It's your business. Build it how you want. No one's telling you what to do. We're giving you the guidelines, right? So that's what we do in the 90 days at the layman's terms. And then we get them to $10,000 recurring revenue in the agency or the coaching model. And what we do in that model is these specific milestones that we walk through for prospecting, sales, fulfillment, and then productivity. We actually start with productivity because I truly believe that that's the gasoline to get everything set up, to start developing discipline. I'll share a really brief story here that I share with everyone I work with because it really makes a lot of sense. When I was a kid, my dad used to wake me up for school. I didn't have a cell phone then to do an alarm, right? So he used to wake me up for school, and every day, no matter what, I'd always say 5 more minutes, right? Always, every time. And he used to say to me pretty constantly, like, Alex, when I'm dead or when you're out of this house, you're going to say to yourself 5 more minutes on the snooze button, and you're not going to be disciplined enough to wake up. Damn it. He was so right? He knew to build habits for discipline and productivity. Otherwise, it's just going to become a habit, and breaking habits is much harder than forming habits, in my opinion. It's very, very difficult. So what we do is we try to form a new habit because we know it's going to take around the 90 days to really get it going. We give them some specific actionable steps to get that done. And then we start moving into the first stage, which is prospecting. And our goal is to help you generate at least 3 sales calls per week through a systemized process that we call prospecting in a box. Once that's set up and you have a systemized process that you can now delegate, take that hat off and put it on someone else. If you want to focus on sales, that's great. Then we move into sales and we talk about an optimal sales system, not just what to do on the call. It's what happens after someone agrees to the call. How do you make sure they show up to the call? How do you nurture them prior to the call? Do you have a demo video that you send them before the call? How many calls do you need to make an offer? Is it 1 or 2 or 3 or 7? How do you ensure that you make an offer and get the payment on that call? Do you have a proposal? What happens after the call if they paid you? What happens after the call if they didn't? So all of those pieces together is the core component that I call optimal sales system. The next piece is the fulfillment and delivery. Now, the fulfillment and delivery obviously changes per person based on what service they're providing. So what we try to do is help them on either side, either building out their program or building out their irresistible offer and how they're going to fulfill it through themselves or a team of people that they're going to hire and developing the SOPs. The ultimate goal with the fulfillment side is that you have an irresistible offer for sales that fits your fulfillment and matches, and you don't have to do the fulfillment basically at all, unless that's your area of genius and something you really want to do, right? So our goal in that final format, Frank, is to help the people get to a place of working 2 hours per day in the business maximum, meaning in client fulfillment and that kind of stuff, which is, pretty minimal. So 10 hours total per week if you do 5-day business weeks, meaning you have a lot of time to work on the business, kind of see what large swaths of opportunity there are outside of it, JVs, content creation, just relaxing and enjoying yourself, enjoying the fruits of the labor you've put in.
Heaven forbid you should just sit back.
Oh my God, how could you take time off? Unbelievable, you're terrible. Yeah, so that's exactly what we do in that format in 90 days. It's an incubator. It is definitely intensive, no doubt. I tell people that the financial investment's the easiest part. It's the part you're most scared of, but it's definitely the easiest part. It's like going to a gym. And I love this metaphor, it's my favorite. It's like going to a gym and you've been working yourself up this whole last 3 months. Your wife's been bitching at you to go. And they're like, okay, it's time. Here it is. Here's the year payment. I'm ready. Lose me weight. Do it.
Lose me weight. I love that.
I'm ready, baby. Do it. And then they're like, you got to go to the classes and you got to do the diet and you got to do the dumbbells and you got to do the push-ups. You're like, what? I just paid. What are you talking about? Right?
What's this class schedule of which you speak?
So like a lot of people want a magic pill process. Yeah. I swear, and Frank, we've joked about this before. Yeah. Like, if we could do it in a magic pill format, we would. It would be easier for us. If I had a USB for my brain and plug it out and be like, here you go, I'll just charge you $100,000. You take my USB. We're not there yet. If you're there, by the way, and you have some sort of like weird, technological advancements, come talk to me. I'm interested.
No, I'm waiting for someone to do a pill commercial like that. A bottle of pills. It's like we've moved from weight loss into business development. You just take one of these every 30 days and your business will grow.
It's going to be a new ad I'm running, by the way, just guaranteed that. I'll call it Panacea, fix for all. Take this one pill and then everything will be fixed. Just like that. All done. Advil for business. Woo! Yeah, it doesn't work that way though. So that's our model. That's how we do it.
Nice.
And, frankly, I cannot say this without, I can't be on this podcast without saying it. I learned this exact format from Frank Bria. I would not be where I'm at without you, Frank. So I appreciate you very much.
Well, that ruins the next thing, which I was going to say, which is that you can tell somebody who really has the format nailed down when they can explain it this well. No, seriously, one of the favorite things I love to do when I have conversations with anybody, when I bring them, if it's I'm just meeting them for the first time, or it's hey, let's get to know people kind of LinkedIn conversation. I'd love to ask, tell me about your offer. How's it structured? It's amazing how many people can't explain actually what their offer is in any concise format. But it makes sense as you describe it. You've clearly thought through, at each stage and how one leads to the next and all that and that process. So
I want to just touch on that last thing you said. Yeah. One of the first things I do in our program when we start with a kickoff call to just get a sense of where you're at. Cause we want to have everyone to kind of be bucketed similarly, but everyone has their own uniqueness, right? So we want to make sure that uniqueness or unique obstacle or problem or mindset issue or whatever is kind of touched on in a one-on-one format at the start. And one of the first things we do is what's your elevator pitch? And if they have problems elucidating that or expressing it in a short and concise format, we really want to hone in on look, imagine if you just met someone that wanted to pay you and you shook their hand and you try to say that. That would not come out very well. You have to be much more concise on this. So that's one of the big things we focus on.
Yeah, that's great. It's so critically important. So I know you guys as a business, as you've crossed the seven-figure pace threshold from a revenue perspective, clearly you've been thinking about how do you handle multiple customers, lots of new customers. What are some of the things that you've embedded into the offer, into the process that have allowed you to scale up to the place that you're at?
Love that. Yeah, so I'll preface with this, like the obstacle to make your first dollar online, to make your first $1,000 online, to make your first $10,000 online, $100,000 and $1 million are all completely different. And I don't think I recognized that so much. However, there is one kind of standard problem throughout, and we were speaking about this right before we went on live, which is kind of that mindset problem. Like no matter how much money you make, the mindset really doesn't change, because when you're like a really aggressive entrepreneur in terms of growth and impact, and you have big, hairy, audacious goals, you end up failing to understand the difference between complacency and satisfaction. Like Frank nor myself want you to be complacent, but you're allowed to also be satisfied. I would say that's like the only baseline similar problem from $1 to $1 million that I've experienced, at least. And maybe it's different for other people, but it's what I've experienced.
Yeah.
So what have I done specifically to kind of pull the levers to make it easier to scale? And Frank, you know this better than most. Like this was really hard. This was like one of the hardest things, mainly because of me. And I want to frame that. It's not because of a format or lack of understanding of a system. It was me being unwilling and kind of having an unbending will to say, I own this and I want to own this, even though owning this, and we'll talk about this in a second, owning this stops me from growth. And this was that I can't clone myself. I'm only one person. Like when I'm doing this with Frank right now, I'm not with my wife. I'm not watching Netflix. I'm not with my clients. I'm not building content. That's just how it works. Like I only have one of me, and Frank only has one of him, and you have only one of you. No matter how much we want to change that, we can't. So one of the things that I identified was I need to figure out how to, one, feel confident to give something to my team, two, build a process that doesn't relate to Alex Schlinsky, but relates to prospecting on demand and the mission. Because I believe wholeheartedly that the mission of prospecting on demand matters more than the leader, which is me. And I think that's super, super critical and important. So specifically, some very specific levers that we did. Number one, SOP on the delivery of the four core tenets, the milestones, the prizes, as you call them, and identifying how someone else can handle it. So hiring someone for that, really powerful. Then the next couple of pieces, Frank, one of the most valuable things you've ever told me before, changed my life, sincerely, this singular sentence, which is, for people to have success in coaching and continue working with you, you need to know three things at all times: where they started, where they are now, and where they are going. Because basically every single person in the world doesn't know that. When I get on a call with someone, Frank, that said no to me 30, 60, 90 days ago, and I say, hey, we spoke 67 days ago about this, and here they're like, oh my God, I'm in the same exact spots. Like, you weren't tracking that, right? You didn't know I tracked it because it's my job, right? But you didn't. And then it's like, oh, where am I going? I don't know. I'm doing day by day. I'm barely stringing along. Like, I don't even know what I'm eating for dinner tonight, right? Yeah. Come on, give yourself a break. Like, you got to plan it. So that really changed. And here's what we did. We have a kickoff guide where it's like a questionnaire of all the things that they have in their business. As you can imagine, most of the things they don't have. And the end of the 90 days, we show them the difference. And it's like, whoa, eye opener, kind of deer in headlights. Like, wow, we just did like 3 to 5 years of work in 90 days. Holy crap, that's amazing. That was big. Then in the intermediate, like where they are now, we've done two specific things. We added a report at the end of every week where they have to submit it, and we have someone on our team. This was huge. I used to review all of them, which is a huge waste of time. Now we paid someone to just review the documents. What I have them review is red flags, aka there's an obstacle or something here that we need to do, wins that we have not been aware of that we should post about, there's like usually like a yellow kind of like, if there's something you're unsure of, just let us know. Like, we'd rather you let us know than be on the back burner of it. So we've done that for all 12 weeks, which is super valuable. And then at the end, we have a graduation form for feedback. Like, who better to tell us how to improve than the people paying us? Like, that's my biggest thing. Like, I really care about our clients. I really want them to succeed. And also, frankly, the more that feedback I get from them, the likelihood is that we can make a simpler process. Occam's razor is like my ideal logical process, where the simpler is probably the easier. And Frank, you know me pretty well. I'm usually not on the simpler side. Like, I want to, for some reason, go on the convoluted side. So I need to kind of fall back sometimes to, hey, we can simplify that. We can just make it easier. I used to think that more training, more value, more processes, more equals more value. It's exact opposite, actually.
Yeah.
More causes more strain, more frustration, more difficulty, more confusion, more questions, more work for us. When you just simplify to do this, and you'll get this, done. So those were some of the specific levers we implemented.
Right. I mean, that's like a masterclass in scaling that you just delivered right there. That's brilliant. So many people talk about scale because first of all, they confuse scale with growth, number one. Number two, they know that scale is something that they need to achieve because you can't hit that 7-figure pace mark without it, but they don't have the processes in place to actually put any of those things. So you just identified that one thing, because so many entrepreneurs are like, I got to replace myself, or I got to clone myself. And then I ask the question that you just described, which is to do what? And they don't know a good answer. Like, there's no good process. So what I really love is that you just shined a light on this question of, like, you know, where have you gone? Where are you? And where are you going in terms of what you want to achieve, that we teach and you obviously do to create customer success programs. But you just also enlightened it as a possibility in a sales process. In your hands, that's a deadly
100%.
weapon.
100%. That's my sales process. The 3 W's. Where are you now? Where do you want to go? What's the obstacle holding you back? If I know those 3 W's and you say no to me for whatever reason, which is okay, by the time I come back to you, I wrote them down. And when I tell you the 3 W's from 3 months ago and you're in the same exact spot, it's like, you got to do something.
That's like dangerous stuff there. That's dangerous stuff.
It changes people. It really makes you.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
They don't recognize. They don't think about that stuff.
Not at all. I mean, that is yeah, I mean, that's clear. I mean, and that's the role of sales. I mean, to take this whole thing full circle, the role of sales is to act in service of the person, because money isn't an end in and of itself. It is simply a measure of the value that you're generating for somebody else. And unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to describe it, in this world, that's how value is expressed. It's expressed in the exchange of money. And when you can stand in service of someone to reflect back their own goals and show that they're not making progress and they have to change what they're doing, and they're going to have to do something different in order to get where they want to go, that is the ultimate service. Like, I don't know any other way to better help somebody. And the indication of the value of that is the person will then pay you to continue that journey and to actualize that goal for them.
100%. And one of the things I tell people on sales to kind of remove skepticism and provide, like, you know, frankness is like, look, I'm just going to be very real with you here. Like, I want to have your best interest at heart and make sure that you're being provided for. The victory in today is not me closing you or making money from you. Right. The victory is in actualizing the ascension promise that I make for you here, because otherwise I would build no goodwill and I wouldn't be in alignment with who I am, and I wouldn't be able to have the results we've had. Even if you were my first client, I'd still feel this way. But it's easier to say when I already have proof, right? So that's something that I use in basically every call. And people kind of misnomer these things as tactics. They're not tactics. It's a methodology to express the reason why I believe in this so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, unfortunately, Alex, we're out of time, and it's a bummer because I love talking to you, and this thing could go on for hours, but unfortunately you're a busy guy. You got stuff to do. Even if it is to go watch Game of Thrones or Chernobyl on HBO, that's important prioritization as well. For those people who are listening and want to connect with you and learn more about what you do, what's a great place for them to start?
Yeah, best place is probably my website, prospectingondemand.com. You can find me on Facebook. Also, my last name is kind of tough, but it's SCHLINSKY. If you can't spell Alex, probably not the right fit to work together. I'm kidding, obviously. But yeah, I also have a free Facebook group, High Ticket Sales and Systems. You can find basically everything on my website, prospectingondemand.com.
Great. And for those of you who are either watching this video or listening on the web, there's a link here. If you're listening via audio on the show notes page, we'll have a link and Alex's last name's correct spelling as well. Woo! So we got that covered. Alex, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. It's been a fun conversation. Lots of stuff that we've covered here. Like I said, a masterclass in sales and scale. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you for all of you who are listening today. We know that there's a lot of things you can do with your time. So to invest with us is an honor, and really hope that you've gotten something out of this. Do yourself a favor, grab one of the tidbits of today's conversation, implement it, go do it. That's really how you get value out of any of these kinds of conversations. There's a ton of stuff here that Alex covered that would be useful for you in your business. And thank you again for spending your time with us. And my name is Frank Bree again. This has been the 6 to 7 Figure Show, and we will see you next time.